Two farmers show up to the same snapshot, and only one of them walks away with anything. The first ran 300 wallets, spun up over a weekend, each doing the same 3 actions in the same afternoon. A wall of volume meant to brute force a share of the pool. The second ran 5 wallets, opened months apart, used slowly and genuinely across an entire season. On paper, the first did 100 times more work, and yet when the allocation review ran, the wall of 300 collapsed into one flagged cluster worth almost nothing, while the 5 quiet wallets each counted as a real user. This is the part of airdrop farming almost nobody wants to hear, that patience tends to beat volume, and the slow boring version is usually the one that survives how these programs actually score you. I run real proxy and cloud phone farms for a living, so I approach this as operations, not as a lottery ticket. The instinct almost everyone starts with is to scale by adding volume, more wallets, more transactions, more of everything, on the theory that a bigger surface area means a bigger claim. I want to walk through why that instinct is mostly backwards now, how quality scoring quietly rewards the opposite, and how to set expectations honestly, because even the patient version guarantees nothing at all. Where the volume instinct comes from. It helps to be honest about where the volume instinct comes from, because it is not stupid, it just belongs to an older version of this game. Years ago, a lot of airdrops really were a single snapshot, and raw presence mattered more than depth. If you could be in more places on the right day, you caught more, so people learned to scale wide and the muscle memory stuck. The trouble is the programs learn too, and most of the large ones no longer reward a wall of shallow presence the way they once did, which leaves a lot of farmers optimizing hard for a scoreboard that quietly stopped counting. What volume actually optimizes for? The deeper problem is that volume optimizes the wrong number. When you scale by count, you are maximizing how many wallets and transactions carry your fingerprints, a quantity you control easily. The number the programs increasingly care about is something else, whether each of those wallets looks like a separate real person who genuinely used the thing. Those two goals pull in opposite directions. The cheapest way to add volume is to repeat the same action across many wallets, and that repetition is precisely the shape quality scoring reads as one operator wearing many hats. How quality scoring reads behavior. It is worth describing what that scoring does in plain defensive terms. A program looking at its user base is trying to tell genuine, separate participation apart from coordinated farming, and it does that by weighing behavior, not identity. Spaced out, varied, useful activity across time reads like a person living their crypto life. Bursts of identical activity, compressed into a short window across many wallets, read like automation. None of this is a single verdict. It is a probability that a cluster is more likely one operator than many, and every program sets its own bar for what counts as confident enough to act. Burst farming has a shape. Burst farming has a shape, one worth understanding defensively rather than imitating. Many wallets born close together, funded from convenient shared sources, doing the same useful actions in the same order inside the same short window, then going quiet. Every element of that is a form of sameness, and sameness across many wallets is the loudest thing on the graph. A volume that felt like strength on your side of the screen looks like one coordinated formation on theirs. It is not that any single wallet did something wrong, it is that the fleet moved like one hand, and that is the signal. Patience is mechanical, not moral. So patience here is not a moral lecture, it is a mechanical advantage, and it comes down to one ingredient you cannot fake or buy: time. A wallet that has existed across many real weeks, funded when you actually needed it, used through quiet stretches and busy ones, carries a depth that no weekend of frantic activity can imitate. Time is the single input a volume strategy cannot manufacture, because volume compresses effort into a burst, and compression is the opposite of the spread out history that reads as genuine. The patient farmer is not being virtuous, they are just accumulating the one thing the fast farmer structurally cannot: a few well-used wallets. This is why a handful of well-used wallets can quietly outperform hundreds of thin ones. 5 wallets, each opened at its own time, each with a real reason to exist and its own pattern of genuine use, look like 5 separate people, because that is how they behaved. 300 wallets sharing a birth week, a funding source, and a script look like one person no matter how large the number gets. Depth is what the scoring rewards, and depth does not come from adding more wallets, it comes from using fewer of them more genuinely over time. The cost nobody prices in. Volume also carries a cost people forget to price in. Every one of those hundreds of wallets needs gas to act, attention to maintain, and infrastructure to keep separate. All real money and real time spent upfront against a reward that guarantees nothing. Spread across hundreds of thin wallets, your gas and your focus dilute into a shallow film, and thin engagement everywhere is worse than genuine engagement in a few places. The patient approach is cheaper precisely because it does less, and does that less with more care. Thin wallets are fragile. There is a fragility to volume the raw number hides. A large fleet of thin wallets is only as strong as its most obvious shared signal. And when many wallets share a funding source, a rhythm, or a settings fingerprint, a single flag does not remove one wallet, it removes the whole cluster at once. All that count evaporates together. 5 genuinely separate wallets do not share a single point of failure like that, because there is no common thread tying them into one entity. Concentration of sameness is concentration of risk. Consistency beats intensity. What actually accrues value over a season is consistency, not intensity. And the two are easy to confuse. Intensity is a burst of activity crammed into a short push. Consistency is a modest, genuine presence that keeps showing up across months. A small swap here, a real interaction there, an idle stretch in between. Consistency is what a real user looks like, because a real user is not grinding. They are just living with the tools over time. The programs that reward sustained engagement are measuring the thing intensity cannot produce. A rhythm that only exists if you genuinely stayed. What useful actually means. Useful is the other word that carries weight, and it pays to be concrete about it defensively. Using an application like a person means engaging with what it does, trying its main feature, sometimes changing your mind, rather than touching one function repeatedly to tick a box. That texture is hard to fake, and easy to produce if you are actually using the thing for a real reason. Hollow touches, the same shallow action repeated for the sake of a number, are exactly what quality scoring learned to discount. Depth of genuine interaction beats breadth of empty ones. Damn, patience as risk control. There is a quieter benefit to the slow approach that has nothing to do with detection. It keeps your risks sane. The volume mindset pushes you to spread gas and capital across everything with a dashboard, which is how people quietly bleed money into a graveyard of programs that go nowhere. Patience forces selection, a small set of things you actually find worthwhile, engaged with genuinely, which keeps your real cost bounded and deliberate rather than sprayed across hundreds of maybes. Operating within what you can genuinely maintain is not a limitation. It is the discipline that keeps this from becoming an expensive hobby that pays out in exhaustion. Realistic expectations. Now the part that has to be said plainly, because patience is not a secret formula either. Genuine, patient farming guarantees nothing. Plenty of programs convert to little or nothing. Plenty of sincere participation gets recognized on terms you do not control. And no approach, slow or fast, promises a payout. What patience buys you is not a guaranteed outcome. It is durability, a strategy that does not collapse the moment a filter improves, because there is no fabrication underneath it to unravel. This is not financial advice, and it is not a prediction about any token. It is just the honest shape of the odds that the patient version fails less catastrophically, not that it always wins. The long, slow game. The mindset that survives all of this is the least exciting one, that airdrop farming is a long, slow game and not a get-rich scheme. Treating it as ops means accepting that most of the work is boring, the reward is uncertain, and the operators who hold up across seasons are usually the ones who started early, stayed small, and let genuine time do the heavy lifting. The get-rich framing is what pushes people toward volume in the first place, because volume feels like acceleration. It is not acceleration, it is just a louder signal of the exact thing the scoring was built to catch, how I actually pace it. In practice, the way I run this is almost anticlimactic. I keep a small number of programs I genuinely think are worth the time. I give each wallet a real reason to exist and let it behave accordingly. I fund on a real timeline instead of one convenient burst, and I check the official dashboards now and then without letting a rising number talk me into forcing activity. I accept that I will miss things because missing things is the only sane way to operate in a landscape with infinite opportunities and finite hours. It is closer to gardening than to mining. The honest self-check. If the only way to maintain your number of wallets is to automate them into one shared pattern, take that as information, not a problem to engineer around. It usually means you are running more than you can genuinely use, and the fix is not a cleverer script. It is fewer wallets used more honestly. The moment activity has to be manufactured to keep up. You have crossed from real participation into the exact burst shape this whole video is about avoiding. The self-check is simple. Could a real person plausibly be doing all of this by hand? And if the answer is no, that is your answer. The honest takeaway, so here is the whole thing distilled. Volume optimizes a number you control and the program stops counting, while patience accumulates the one input, time, that volume structurally cannot fake. A few well-used wallets look like a few real people. Hundreds of thin ones look like one operator wearing hundreds of masks. Consistency beats intensity, depth beats breadth, and selection beats spraying gas at everything. And through all of it, expect nothing guaranteed, because the point of the patient approach was never certainty. It is a strategy that ages well instead of collapsing the first time the scoring gets sharper, which it always does. The full guides are at airdropfarming.org, written up the same boring methodical way, with no hype, no guaranteed drop numbers, and nothing that pretends any of this is financial advice. I farm these slowly, I write down what actually seems to qualify, and what quietly gets filtered, and the tools I trust to keep a few wallets genuinely separate are all there. Subscribe if you want the operator view, patience explained as mechanics rather than motivation, and none of the guaranteed riches talk. Next time, how to choose which few programs actually deserve your patience in the first place. The boring filter for deciding whether a drop is even worth a single dollar of gas. Because the slow game only pays off when the few things you commit to are the right ones, and picking wrong costs as much patience as picking right.